Bună seara, dragi telespectatori! Bine v-am regăsit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Viitorul Medicina Holistică. Știm cu toții cât de importantă este iubirea pentru noi oamenii. Am aflat de multe ori aici la clinică. Astăzi însă, doamna doctor ne va explica cum ne ajută iubirea pe noi și cât ne ajută sistemul energetic uman. Doamna doctor, cum privește medicina holistică vindecarea sistemului energetic uman?
Destul de complex, pentru că sistemul energetic uman este complex. O să vedeți că există foarte multe componente energetice, de fapt, care intervin. Nu suntem decât noi, nu toate țin de noi. Suntem o parte componentă, de fapt, dintr-un circuit sacru, cum spunea Greg Braden.
I'm going to describe to you now something the ancients called the sacred circuit. In our tradition, when I was in school, when you were in school, you were taught that our cells, the cells and the DNA in our body, are regulated by the brain. That the brain regulates the immune system of our body and all of our regulatory functions, the heating and cooling of the body, our metabolism, aging and deterioration. I make a distinction between aging and deterioration. You will all be 4 hours older. This is a 4-hour video. 4 hours older after you've seen this video, and you don't care about that. Did you deteriorate in those 4 hours? That's what you care about. And if you did, why? Do we have to deteriorate? All of our responses to the external environment, we're conditioned that our brain regulates all of those. Now, I won't say that that's not true. What I'll say is that that is incomplete. Because the brain responds to a pulse, an electromagnetic signal, and that is how it regulates these cells. Where does that signal come from? Well, researchers asked the same question, and about 2 years ago, 1994, 93, 94, what researchers discovered was that the brain does in fact have a signal, and it responds and directs the signal, receives a signal directly from the human heart. That there is actually a circuit, a resonant tuning between the human heart and the brain and the cells of our body. And it didn't take researchers long to say, well, if that's true, where does the heart get its signal? And this isn't a heartbeat. We're not talking about the heartbeat. We're talking about the electromagnetic pulse of the heart that you would get in an EKG, for example. Well, it didn't take researchers long to discover that the Earth is, in fact, tuned to something else. The Earth receives its signals from something else directly from the Earth. So what we can say is that there is a circuit that moves from the Earth to the heart, to the brain, to the cells of our body, a tuned resonant circuit. It's not about wires connecting things together. It's a vibratory tuning.
Doamna doctor, adică noi suntem acordați energetic la pământ, primim impulsuri de la pământ și prin inimă le transmitem la creier, așa am înțeles.
Da, așa spunea Greg Braden. Dar o să vedeți că fizicianul german Schumann a descoperit în 1952 că Pământul este înconjurat de un câmp electromagnetic, ca un fel de generator, știți, de energie, care este situat în partea de jos a atmosferei și anume în ionosferă, la 100 de kilometri deasupra noastră, de fapt. Și acest generator, acest câmp energetic, vibrează, rezonează, se numește rezonanța Schumann și este de 7,83 de Hz sau pulsații pe secundă.
Un fel de inimă a Pământului.
Da, un fel de inima Pământului, exact. Și noi, de fapt, sau mai bine spus, inimile noastre, de fapt, suntem conectate la această frecvență și vibrăm la oaltă cu ea. E ca un fel de pacemaker care ne susține cumva.
Deci legătura noastră cu Pământul este foarte, foarte importantă, să înțelegem.
Este chiar vitală. Iar dacă ea se modifică, pentru că o să vedeți că avem niște probleme pe această temă, noi percepem, de fapt, sub formă de simptome aceste transformări. Practic nu putem să fim sănătoși, de fapt, în afara acestei frecvențe biologice naturale. De exemplu, când astronauții ieșeau din rezonanța Schumann și călătoreau în spațiu, știți, se îndepărtau de Pământ, s-a observat că ei se îmbolnăveau. Și apoi erau reanimați, în ghilimele, printr-un stimulator Schumann, adică se imitea frecvența Schumann și s-a observat că se vindecau. Deci problema este că această frecvență este de fapt foarte importantă, numai că ea acum este în schimbare, este într-o transformare, adică ea crește de la 7,83 la 11 Hz.
there's a distance between the surface of the Earth and the ionosphere. Now, as that changes, the Earth's natural frequency, that is more or less picked up through the magnetic fields, is 7.8 hertz, very low frequency. You think about that bass drums and things at 500 hertz. We're talking about 7.8 hertz, which is below the human audible range. And this is a frequency that has been known since the 1800s. Now they have ways to measure the magnetic fields, the Schumann resonance. We're going to talk about that. It's going to take a couple of different parts to get the information put together to make this video complete. But the Schumann resonance, again, 7.8 hertz, which is frequencies or frequency per second. That's the Earth's natural frequency. So when you have a compression event and the ionosphere is compressed, it changes the sound guide or the sound wave of the entire Earth because the distance is compressed or changed between the ionosphere and the surface of our planet, making it a tighter note. It will change that. So when you come away from the natural frequency, and we're going to get into that, guys, at 7.8, when something alters that, then you start having these ill feelings. Not only that, I'll do the links to some of these studies, but the scientific world has been studying it and looking into it very deeply. And it's not just you feel bad or headaches or things like that, guys. It goes much deeper than that, and that's what we're going to talk about. But they talk about what I want to do in here is looking at the research and how it encompasses a large variety of scientific data to gain new insights into the interconnectedness of human/animal health and behavior and the sun and Earth's magnetic activity. Guys, this is a very important scientific video series because it affects you directly, even down to prayer. So pay attention. It says the scientific community is just beginning to appreciate and understand the deeper level of how we are interconnected. We are getting closer to understanding why and how magnetic fields generated by the sun and Earth affect human health and behavior, and why it is important to know this. The idea that the Earth, Sun, and other planetary bodies influence human health and behavior, and on a larger scale, listen, social unrest and significant global events, has been discussed among scientists for decades. The study of this interconnectedness, which is not yet fully embraced in the mainstream scientific community, is still young. Now, they're using a multidisciplinary approach that includes the geosciences, astrophysics, as well as extensive data from human and animal studies that are correlated to social and global events. That's key, guys. That's noticing patterns and being able to put them together and put the pieces together. It says this Global Coherence Initiative employs the Global Coherence Monitoring System to collect a variety of data, information about Earth's magnetic field, and how it affects and is influenced by human emotions and behaviors. Now, did you see what they said? How it affects and is influenced by human emotions and behaviors. What they found, guys, is the human body itself has magnetic fields, not just one, but multiple, and that it's all tied together just the way we've talked about. All the magnetic fields are connected the same way you have coils in a transformer connected. The same principle on different scales, but all running at a frequency, if everything is stabilized, at 7.8 hertz, or the Schumann resonance, the perfect Schumann resonance. And guys, that's the basis and the low frequency for DNA construction, things like that. Think about it.
Doamna doctor, înțeleg că ființa umană are și ea un câmp electromagnetic care interferează cu cel al Soarelui și cu cel al Pământului.
Da, și pot afecta sănătatea oamenilor și comportamentele lor sociale. Pe de altă parte, câmpurile noastre electromagnetice, că avem și noi câmpuri electromagnetice, știți?
Da.
De la inima noastră. Ele pot interfera, din păcate, în sens negativ și putem să afectăm propria planetă. Adică, din păcate, dacă noi avem foarte multă populație, avem foarte multe câmpuri electromagnetice negative, în plus de aceasta și tehnologia aceasta nouă care a apărut, care și emite un fel de semnale și deci câmpuri, noi putem să afectăm, și asta se întâmplă în ultimul secol, de fapt, că am început să ne afectăm propria planetă, propria sursă.
So that puts a whole new perspective in the game of changing the magnetic fields on Earth. It says when the Earth's magnetic field environment is disturbed, it can cause sleep disturbances, mental confusion, unusual lack of energy, or a feeling of being on edge or overwhelmed for no apparent reason. It says they use this system to conduct research on the mechanisms on how the Earth's various fields affect human physiological, mental, and emotional processes, health, and collective behavior. You notice the word collective behavior, guys? What they're talking about is, we talked about how the Earth's magnetic field comes in through the North Poles, out the South Poles, and that it's tied in with the Hall currents that are underground. We get the ground-based currents. All of this is connected. Now, what they're talking about is each person, which we mentioned, we have our own magnetic field, but when they talk about collective consciousness, they're saying at certain resonances that people can experience these things worldwide or as a group, even in small groups such as a church, when everyone's possibly singing or praying or listening to the word, and it's a very nice fellowship. That's an example. But that it's important to realize that some of the technology that we're seeing now can actually affect this unnaturally. And if they've proven that it can cause global unrest, things like that, then that control and that collapse and the change of these frequencies, guys, they could control a lot of the psychological effects on humans. They are using this research on how the Earth's various fields affect, again, the human physiological, mental, emotional processes, health, and collective behavior. We're all tied together. In addition, we hope they're saying to investigate whether changes in the Earth's magnetic field occur before natural catastrophes like earthquakes. They want to know whether changes in the Earth's magnetic field occurs before earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and human events such as social unrest and terrorist attacks. Well, I know, and I've shown it for years, that when you have compression from solar events on our Earth's magnetic field and our magnetopoles, we have earthquakes. We have a lot of earthquakes. We have a lot of volcanoes behind that. But that compression event, not only magnetically, is charged into the inner Earth, but the actual physical compression on our plates.
Doamna doctor, deci multe perturbații climatice, conflicte mondiale și cu tremure, chiar boli, pot fi influențate de creșterea frecvenței Schumann, să înțelegem.
Sigur că da. Și datorită acestei accelerări, pentru că de fapt creșterea frecvenței înseamnă o rapiditate a ei, deci datorită acestei accelerări generale, o zi de 24 de ore este percepută ca având 16 ore, pentru că toți avem în ultimul timp, și cred că și dumneavoastră și telespectatorii, percepția că merg lucrurile mai repede. Cam așa arată. E datorită măririi acestei frecvențe. Iar aceste conexiuni cu Pământul, de fapt, arată că, de fapt, noi oamenii de pe planetă formăm un fel de, să zicem așa, un fel de superorganism viu. Suntem un fel de entitate unică, suntem pur și simplu aceeași entitate. Avem, cu alte cuvinte, aceeași natură bioenergetică și suntem înconjurați de aceleași unde de rezonanță Schumann, iar modificarea lor, cum am văzut că se întâmplă, ne afectează și pe noi.
The number of reported traffic violations and accidents, mortality from heart attacks and strokes, and incidences of depression and suicide. When you're turning off that God feed, and that's exactly what it is, that life force of God, at 7.8 cycles per second, where when you're in the right state of prayer, then you're there. That's when you've turned off the external senses. You're quiet. TV's off, everything. Your external senses, your eyes, your ears, taste, touch, smell are off. And you can hear what you need to hear. But with all the disturbances in our magnetic fields, guys, cell phone towers, how it has altered our level of contact with the needed information. Now, the Earth and ionosphere generate a symphony of frequencies ranging from 0.01 hertz, which again, below human audible range, up to 300 hertz, which is below a lot of people's audible range. And some of the large resonances occurring in the Earth's field are in the same frequency range as those occurring in the human cardiovascular system, the brain, and the autonomic nervous system. Although researchers have looked at some of the possible interactions between the Earth's field and human, animal, and plant activity, new data is indicating that we may be more deeply interconnected with the Earth's field than previously even imagined. Historically, many cultures believe that collective behavior could be affected by the sun and other external cycles and influences. This belief has proven to be true. On a larger social scale, increased violence, crime rate, social unrest, revolutions, and frequency of terrorist attacks have been linked to the solar cycle and the resulting disturbances in the geomagnetic field. That's how we're tied to that. This first scientific evidence of this was provided by, of all people, Chevesky, a Russian scientist who noticed that more severe battles in World War I, think about it, occurred during peak sunspot periods. He then conducted a thorough study of global human history dating back to 1749. Again, this is how you do this. And compare the occurrences of key events with the occurrence of solar cycles over the same time period until 1926. Not quite 200 years. Then he reconstructed this original data, plot numbers of significant human events corresponding with the occurrence of the solar cycles, again, in that 180-year period from 1749 to 1926. Now, what you're looking at from the original data is that the blue line plots the annual number of important political and social events, such as the start of wars, social revolutions, etc., while the red line plots solar activity is indicated by the number of sunspots from 1749 to 1922. The histories of 17 countries were compiled, and it was found that 80% of the most significant events occurred during solar maximums, which correlate with the highest periods of geomagnetic activity. Now, what's different is because of electronics and other things, where man is now changing and interfering with this frequency. So solar activity has not only been associated with social unrest, it also has been related to periods of greatest human flourishing with definite spurts in architecture, arts, and science, and positive social change. When things are normal and that frequency of 7.8 is unaltered, now we see less and less of that, again, because of all the electronic interference. You can learn from past mistakes and consciously choose new ways of navigating these great energy influxes to create periods of human flourishing and humanitarian advances. Now, what is he saying? That if you're aware that these things are what's happening to you, when you see these solar flares and coronal mass ejections and the collapse of the magnetopoles, things like that.
Deci, practic, noi suntem conectați energetic prin atmosferă, care este un fel de sferă energetică ce înconjoară Pământul.
Da, ca o inimă. Avem aici o reprezentare foarte frumoasă. Deci e un fel de ceva care protejează ca o inimă, da? E un câmp care conține foarte multă energie. Trebuie să știți că rezonanța Schumann este un fel de undă electromagnetică care există în această cavitate, în această, să zicem, sferă.
This information is coming out of NASA. It was out of a Handbook of Atmospheric Electrodynamics by Van Hall in 1995, published, and it was on human resonance, written by Davis Campbell of the Geophysical Institute at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. It says the Earth behaves like an enormous electric circuit. The atmosphere is actually a weak conductor, and if there were no sources of charge, its existing electric charge would diffuse away in about 10 minutes. There is a cavity defined by the surface of the Earth in the inner edge of the ionosphere at 55 kilometers and up. At any moment, it said the total charge resulting in this cavity is 500,000 coulombs. That's a lot of energy. You'll see this. It's through lightning. That atmospheric buildup from the coronal stream through coronal mass ejection, solar flares, etc. These events excite the atmosphere, compress it. This energy is built up. It's released through sprites that hits the top of the storm clouds and creates lightning. We'll look at that. But it talks about the voltage potential is 200,000 volts, and there are about 1,000 lightning storms at any given moment worldwide. Each produces 0.5 to 1 ampere, and these collectively account for the measured current flow in the Earth's electromagnetic cavity. That's between, again, the ionosphere and the surface of the Earth. If you squeeze that, it's like blowing through a smaller horn. It tightens up, it raises the frequency, it changes it. The Schumann resonance are quasi-standing wave electromagnetic waves that exist in this cavity. Like waves on a spring, they are not present all the time, but have to be excited to be observed. They are not caused by anything internal to the Earth, its crust or its core. They seem to be related to electrical activity in the atmosphere, particularly during times of intense lightning activity. They occur at several frequencies between 6 and 50 cycles per second. Remember, 7.83 is the Schumann resonance. Specifically 7.8, 14, 20, 26, 33, 39, and 45. We're going to get into that. Just hang in here. This has got a daily variation of about a half of a cycle. This is what it looks like in an image, Schumann resonant measurements. Now, that doesn't give you a lot of information unless you study it a lot and you see the white areas where you're really getting overloads. It talked about this for years, back in 1952. But that the Schumann resonances are most easily detected between 20 hours and 2200 hours UTC time. These are sprites above the cloud tops. These are the first color images, and this was done in July 1994 out of the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where we're talking about. This is the diagram. The upper atmosphere is struck by the solar energy. Extremely low frequencies are generated. That's what we're talking about, 7.83 hertz. You see these blue jets. It hits the top of the clouds. That energy is discharged to the ground through lightning. This energy creates this vibration that God has set at 7.83 hertz. It varies again, but you get enough of it under natural circumstances where it does what it's supposed to do. And this diagram kind of shows that between the ionosphere down to the surface of the Earth, through the troposphere, the stratosphere, and the mesosphere, is that cavity. So when you squeeze it through compression events, it changes the frequency.
Doamna doctor, care ar fi concluzia?
Concluzia este că Pământul trece printr-o schimbare de frecvență, începând din 1989-90 încoace, iar corpurile noastre percep de fapt aceste schimbări. De fapt ne creștem frecvența odată cu a Pământului. Că de fapt asta facem, deci noi cumva evoluăm.
Atunci ar trebui să ne acordăm la frecvența Pământului și să fim mai sănătoși.
Corect. Dar noi trebuie să știți că mai avem așa și anumite lucruri pe care le facem și n-ar trebui. De exemplu, că emitem și frecvențe proprii și câteodată nu sunt benefice. De exemplu, frica. Este corespondentul unei frecvențe disonante. Un fel de frecvență negativă, știm acest lucru, care, ce credeți, oprește acordarea de fapt la frecvența Pământ. Practic o întrerupe. Și ce putem să facem, de exemplu, să ne împământăm. Sunt meditații și am avut și emisiuni cu meditație cu împământare. Ne-ar ajuta foarte mult să ne reconectăm la pământ. Frica este un fel de frecvență bruiaj, ca să zicem așa. Adică ne întrerupe această conexiune, această acordare, ne izolează într-un fel, ca pe astronauți, cum povesteam.
De unde vine mai exact frica?
Vine din mințile noastre. O generăm noi, de fapt, eronat.
De fapt, tot ansamblul energetic este construit încât toate aceste câmpuri ale Soarelui, Pământului și oamenilor să funcționeze ca un tot.
Exact. Numai că atunci când apar erori, și pot să apară erori din toate direcțiile, de la soare, când apar pete pe soare, de la pământ, acum că se modifică pământul, sau de la noi, sau din jurul nostru, de la tehnologia foarte bogată care există, tu începi să te deconectezi și atunci când te deconectezi, te îmbolnăvești, de fapt.
Doamna doctor, sunt foarte impresionată de faptul că noi suntem un tot unitar, deci noi suntem un tot întreg.
Sigur că da, suntem ca într-un dans. Suntem într-un dans energetic.